Hey everybody, I'm Joel Signorelli at Archery Supplies. Thank you for watching. So, back again, another video. Steve will be returning soon. I'm just going to be standing in as his bow double for a little while. And so I thought today that we would have a look at the Elite era, since we've just looked at the Omnia. Now, I haven't really done much in the way of the setup for this bow so far. So what I've done basically is I have attached the rest and the sight. We've just eyeballed it. I've come out to 40, put some arrows down until I've got a sight setting that I'm semi-happy-ish with, and we'll see how it shoots. Now, I did see noted in the comments on the last video about how, the difference with attaching a broadhead onto the front and what those things will change, and whether a minor tear through paper will translate to larger misses when we're broadhead tuning and things like that. So I thought it might be interesting to shoot my hunting arrow. So I've brought one of mine out today. So hopefully you can see that. So that's the Victory VAP TKO. So that's in a 300 spine with a 150 grain insert up the front with a 125 grain point. It's a 508 grain total arrow. And I do have, with a broadhead on it, stuck in my quiver, the QAD Exodus broadhead. So fixed blade, 3. I've always really liked these broadheads. I've always found that they fly really, really well. I'm not sure if I've always just been lucky with broadhead tuning, but I've never had to make super massive adjustments. Anyway, so in terms of specs for the era, so there's quite a lot of great reviews out there already. So in terms of IBOs and things like that, I'm not going to shoot it through a chrono today because, some very reputable channels have done that and have some good readings from it. So just in terms of basic specs though, so we're at a 31.75 axle to axle, a 7.25 brace, so it is a very nice, very big forgiving brace height. It does feel very stable to shoot. The reflex deflex on it as well is quite small. So in terms of how it feels and how it looks, it's a little bit on the chonkier side, I would say, if that's a good descriptor for a bow. So with Elites, I've always found that their riser design and their caged risers have always been quite sleek and slim and look really nice. This one's a little bit fatter, I would say. So like here, so where this bushing is chonkier, which is no doubt to do with the carbon and the material and how they make it and making sure that the tolerances are good. So I do think that the grip feels just mildly wider, I would say, than I have the Encore, but also from the Omnia as well. In terms of how it feels to shoot, so obviously it's going to be quite similar to the Omnia. Now, having said that, I've timed it, but I haven't shot it through paper, so potentially this is going to have that cable cam issue that the Omnia had, so we'll have a look. But let's just shoot some groups and see how it shoots, see how it groups, see how I do. Thank you so much, by the way, everybody in the comments. Just so lovely. Everybody's super, super nice, so I really appreciate that. So I thought it might be an interesting idea to shoot a group with some target arrows, see how they group with nothing on the bow, and then we'll shoot the hunting arrows, the field points, and the broadheads, and we'll see how they group in relation to each other. And yeah, let's see how it goes. We're doing an Archery Supplies style, which means it's all one take, and if anything goes wrong, it goes wrong. So let's see how we do. All right. So I use the bottom pin there. So I have a sight setting for the target arrows and a sight setting for the hunting arrows. So I've just used the sight setting for the much heavier hunting arrow. So at least it's straight, it's in the middle, so that's a positive sign. All right. Yeah, that's better. Use the right sights. I always recommend using the right sights. It helps immeasurably. Alright. let's just do it like 10 more times. So I'm shooting the B3 Infinity hinge release. Somebody noted that I looked punchy in the last one. It is a hinge, but I take your point. So I've actually cooled it off, and I'm going to try and sort of slow down the shot process a little bit. Just feel comfortable, shoot my shots. Because that's all you can do. Like, really, like, when you're shooting well, you sort of get into that flow state. You sort of just feel it all happening and it's working well. You're not overthinking it. So I think they're sort of grouping okay. I'm a little all over the place again, but I've been mentally preparing myself all weekend to make another video for Steve. So I was shooting like a madman. Oof. So I don't know why I throw those ones out to the left. I'm sure somebody will tell me. But I think it would be grip pressure in my front hand, but it could be variation on my release. So there's generally reasons. If we miss consistently in one direction, there's going to be something that we're consistently doing wrong. So I don't believe in like paying way too much attention to your bad shots. I think that you should be paying attention to your good shots, staying positive, reinforcing the things that are improving your archery, not honing in on the negative things that are maybe hindering you a little bit. So I try to sort of be aware of why things are going wrong, but I try not to dwell on it. I'd rather think about the good shots that I make instead of the couple of bad ones. No idea where that one went. It was a long hold. But in terms of how it feels to shoot the bow, look, the difference between this and the Omnia, it's pretty minimal. Like, in terms of the shock and the hand feel, yeah, there's a little bit more in this one. But like for a carbon bow, it's still remarkably dead and still, I think. And like, realistically, like if this was my bow or if this was most people's bow, we'd be looking at putting maybe a 8 to 12 inch stabilizer on it with some weight. For my hunting setup, I run, I think it's a 10, and then it's probably about 10 ounces or so of weight, so that's a couple more inches. So that will steady things up. It will also take out any hint of shock. So people sort of say, oh, you know, there's hand shock in this carbon bow or there's hand shock in that carbon bow. It's like, well, yeah, of course, but you know, it's kind of to be expected, and it's also kind of irrelevant. Depending on how you shoot it. Some people shoot with the setup much like this. Look, the shots felt good. I don't really know where they went. I can sort of see a bit of a cloud in the middle, so kind of hoping that it's mostly good. So now let's see where the hunting arrows with the field points and the broadheads go. So, like I said, this is a 508 grain arrow. The target arrows we were shooting just now, those were victories as well. They were about 370, I think. So a little bit heavier, like, but other than some drop happening, I haven't really noticed much going much different. Cool, that one felt really good. So, we're shooting at the lower target now, which I hope you can see. Let's put another one of these in. And this is one of these things where it's like, if I generally will test most of my hunting stuff out to 50, 60 meters, just because I like to have that level of certainty in the equipment. But realistically, like, you see how much variation I'm getting at this distance, at 40 meters, because I've got a little bit of nerves, there's a little bit of wind, there are environmental factors beyond my control. So, like, I would never take a shot on an animal, probably, even from this distance. Like, I would prefer to be at 30. And I would prefer to potentially, you know, bump it and miss out on the opportunity than to, you know, have something happen and to, you know, just wound something. I don't think wounding things from distance is what any of us want to see. Alright, so those are the 2 hunting arrows with the field points. Now let's get the broadheads out of my quiver, which I very cleverly put in there. Which in hindsight may have been a mistake. It's alright. Archery supplies video. What happens, happens. So we're going to have to pop the bow down and pull these arrows out. I'm going to carefully put this lovely new bow on my feet so it's not on the ground. Now, in terms of how we set up and how we tune and when we paper and all of those sorts of things, like, it's going to be a little bit contentious, and we're all going to have different opinions. And they're all going to be right and wrong to, you know, greater or lesser extents. I think, like, the thing that we can all agree is that so long as our arrows are impacting where our point of aim is and the arrow flight is good, we've achieved what we want to achieve. So how you go about doing that, whether it be, you know, starting with paper, people have, you know, different points of view on where we should start. Say paper as your starting point. To me, not necessarily. To me, I will generally eyeball and I will walk back. I find that walk back is probably, to me, the most practical and most applicable, like, method of tune. And I'll use paper more as a diagnostic tool to really see if things are going drastically wrong, you know? And if they are, then we can make adjustments. So it's like, yeah, there was that tiny tear on the Omnia video. Now, a lot of people said, you know, I would have been happier if you had have gotten that out, if you had have gotten it to a bullet hole. And so would I. Like, I agree. The thing is, there are so many different ways that we could have achieved it. You know, we could have played with the set, we could have played with the rest, we could have played with the arrow spine. It could have been face contact. I could have a little bit too much pressure on the string. Like, so, yeah, like feel free to disagree, and I'm sure there'll be healthy discussion in the comments, as there always is. But to me, like, paper just isn't the be-all and end-all. If I've got a tiny tear through paper, I can live with it if the bow shoots well at distance, you know? If I've got a tiny tear and the bow's still shooting badly, then yeah, there's something wrong and I'll play, but you've got to go through the whole sort of system and figure it all out. Anyway, let's shoot these broadheads and see where they go. Beautiful. Shooting good. So, like I said, in my experience, like, I may have just gotten lucky with broadheads and broadhead tuning. I've only ever really used, I've used the Q80 Exodus, I've used the Rage expandables, and I have used an Australian brand called Cayuga. Yeah, Cayuga broadheads, which are a single blade, which were awesome as well. And I've just never really had that much issue. Cool. All right, let's head down to the target and see how we did. Down here at the target, and the target shooting was kind of average. Like, main group, not too bad. So like I said, I had these two. These were both, like, I think they were almost one after another, or very close to it. And like I said, like, when you have a consistent miss in one direction and you're doing that, there's something that you're doing consistently wrong. So I would say that there was probably a little much pressure in the hand, and it's how I've sort of torqued it as I've pushed the shot off. The rest of them are pretty good. Not bad. From 40 meters, I'm pretty happy with that group. hunting arrows and broadheads. Really good. Better than the target arrows. So let me push this last one out a little bit so you can actually see it. Sort of get it dug out from the bag it's stuck in. There we go. They penetrate a long way, these ones. But here we go. So these two are my broadhead, and these two are my field point. Look, you could potentially argue that the group's slightly lower. I think you'd be splitting hairs to do it though. I'd say that like a group like that size from 40 meters with a broadhead, I'm quite happy. But in terms of like, you know, oh yeah, no, that was the broadhead. And a good trick for getting your broadheads out if you're having trouble with it. A lot of people ask me this. Carefully, because hopefully your broadhead is very sharp, you'll unscrew the broadhead from the back of the target, and now you can pull your arrow out. So, I don't know how long it took me to figure that one out. Probably far longer than any intelligent person would be happy to admit, but anyway. So that's the era, shooting at 40 meters with no paper tune, with no stabilizers, no setup, like $15 rest, and the peep, because yeah, Steve does seem to be the only person I know who can shoot a peep, no peep from distance. I tried it, it's not that, but anyway. So, I'm not sure what kind of tear I'd get if I shot it through paper. It might bullet straight away, maybe I just got really lucky and got a good one. Although, you know, the argument is that like, you know, all of these bows should be good out of the box, right? It's the top of the line bow, you know, I shouldn't have to pull it out and go straight to an in-depth and sort of exhaustive amount of tuning on it. It should be, you know, ready to pull out and shoot. I get that argument. I also get the argument for why that may or may not always happen. But it's an interesting one. But yeah, I think the main takeaway, at least for me, is the shooting. It's always going to be the shooting. I know we probably sound like a broken record, just banging on about that, which is kind of funny, really, for a shop. Like, you know, we tend to sort of say, you know, it's not really the equipment, it's the archer. So you'd think we'd do it the other way around to sell product, but yeah. So let's go back and do our sort of final thoughts. All right, guys. Well, that was the Elite era. It was a super nice bow to shoot. What would be my main takeaways from it? Low shock, nice hold. I didn't feel a whole lot of wobble, even though I wasn't as solid as I potentially could have been. I like the systems on it. I really like that it's a 1/4 inch draw length adjustment. I think that all bows should be 1/4 inch draw length adjustment. I languished for so long with 1/2 inches, and you sort of get to the point where you're fine tuning like D-loop length and playing with cables and stuff to get those tiny little adjustments you need, whereas this, it's just so easy. Things that I would do, like on my Encore, I have the limb stops on. It gives it such a rock solid positive back wall, and I would say that would be the same experience with this. But yeah, it's a really sweet bow to shoot. It feels really, really nice, as you would expect from, you know, the bow of the year. It's supposed to be amazing, but I really like it. Is it my favorite of the carbon bows? I'm not sure. I'm going to shoot the other ones over the coming days, and we'll see how they go. But yeah, for now, like, in terms of, you know, it shoots well with target arrows, and it's shooting my hunting arrows very well. So yeah, but, you know, like we always say, the best thing to do is to try these things for yourself. If you can get down to an elite dealer or a local shop and give it a shot and see how it goes, then that's always going to be your best judge of it. But in the meantime, thank you again very much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks, bye.